So movies, let's talk about movies and film this week. As you saw in the introductory video, we talked about the Hays Code, the breakdown of the Hays Code, the original censorship code that had prevailed through the 40s, 50s, and early 60s, was breaking down in the 60s, could no longer work for the newer movies that were coming out, especially movies such as Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and Blow Up. I hope you watched last week the Yardbirds excerpt from the movie Blow Up. Try and find some of these movies. Go out and search for them at your local Netflix distributor. I guess we get all that online nowadays. Blow Up, very interesting movie by the foreign director, the European director, Antonioni, I believe is his name. Antonioni. What a funny name. But this week we really want to talk about the big three, the trilogy. The trilogy. We have Bonnie and Clyde. We have Easy Rider, and we have Midnight Cowboy. We have violence, drugs, sexuality. So the Hays Code breaks down. By 67, 68, the Motion Picture Association of America is working out the new rating system. Again, a completely different system, a completely different concept for dealing with who can see these movies. So before, movies were submitted to a censorship panel who said yes or no, this movie can be released, or no, this movie cannot be released, judging on what they saw as content in the movie, and would force the movie studios to make changes to the movie. We saw this in Blackboard Jungle, and another thing we saw was disclaimers at the beginning of the movie in both The Wild One and Blackboard Jungle. Disclaimers. And so the Hays Code and the movie censors had a great amount of control over the movies, because the movie just would not be released if it did not have the Hays Code approval. One interesting exception to this was Frank Sinatra's Man with the Golden Arm, but that was the exception to the rule and did not happen very often. But that system was breaking down, as we said, through the 60s, and the Motion Picture Association decided they needed to completely scrap the old system of censorship and come up with a rating system. So now a movie could be made and be submitted, and it would be rated. It would no longer be censored. The movie would not be changed. It would get a G rating, general. It would get a P rating, parental. It would get an M rating, mature, or it would get an X rating, nasty. I'm not sure what they meant by X originally, because it became to mean something else later. So we have G, P, M, X. Now this later changed, of course, as you know, to G, and then PG, parental guidance, and PG-13. So we've got G, PG, PG-13. M turned to R for restricted, no one under 17 allowed without a parent or guardian, and X was gotten rid of in favor of NC-17, because the porn industry took over the X rating, and the movie industry of America did not want to be associated with any movie that was called X-rated, so they came up with NC-17. But nowadays, if a movie ever does get an NC-17 rating, it really is the kiss of death, because most movie theaters will not distribute it, most advertising will not be associated with it, so all the movie people are looking for the R rating. But these three movies, again, were very important for this big transition. So this week we're talking about Bonnie and Clyde. Unfortunately, I can't put very much of Bonnie and Clyde up on our internet site on Blackboard, because YouTube is restricting it because of who is Warner Brothers, our friends at Warner Brothers. Oh dear, you can't watch a 7-minute clip from Bonnie and Clyde. We're going to restrict it and pull it down. So anyway, please try and rent this, get your Netflix thing happening, and please see if you can rent this Bonnie and Clyde. Considered a very violent movie. Why was violence being shown more and more in the movies in the 60s? Very simple answer: the Vietnam War. The war is now televised on nightly news, visions of death and carnage every night on the news. The Vietnam War was a hugely wrenching experience in the mid-60s for our society, and again really affected violence as it was depicted on TV and in the movies. And please be sure you are listening to the interview with the director of the movie. And the movie did win 67 Estelle Parsons. One of the very first performances by Gene Hackman. director Arthur Penn. That's who the interview is with, director Arthur Penn. So Bonnie and Clyde. And again, our other two movies. So this movie is not rated. This movie came out just before the rating system, as the Hays Code was breaking down, 1967. But our other two movies, this was originally rated M for mature, is later changed to R. Easy Rider is rated R. Midnight Cowboy, the only X-rated movie to win an Academy Award, was later brought down to R without a single scene changed. So both of these movies are R-rated. Again, our big three: violence, drugs, sex. Love the late 60s, as our movie rating system is changing rapidly and our society is changing rapidly due to drugs, LSD, violence in Vietnam, the Vietnam War. And so these things are just wrenching our society apart, as shown in these movies. So please try and rent Bonnie and Clyde at your local. We don't rent movies anymore. Please try and get Bonnie and Clyde online and watch it through Netflix, and listen to the interview with director Arthur Penn.